Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you can't see me, but my name is Caitlin Dempsey, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Rice Financial Group. Before we get going tonight, I wanted to share just a couple of things. First, I wanted to thank all of you for spending the night with us and choosing to be here tonight to learn more about how to pay for college with other people's money. We're very, very excited that you are here and wanting to learn more. A little bit about Rice Financial Group. There are 10 of us who work for Rice Financial Group. We have 6 financial advisors and 4 staff members. We do take a team-based approach to helping our clients reach their financial goals, and we love providing educational resources to our clients and prospective clients, which is why you are all here tonight. So Ian Rice, who you can see in the video here, he is the owner of Rice Financial Group, and I wanted to spend just a brief moment of your time before we have him kick it off, because he'll be taking us through it tonight to talk about Ian and share a little bit about his experience and his knowledge. So Ian Rice studied financial economics and business at the University of Oregon and Portland State University. He started Rice Financial Group in 2009, and he has grown to be in the top percent of financial advisors in the country. And we're really, really excited about that. Ian holds 7 industry designations, and bear with me because I am going to go through them because it's pretty awesome. Ian is a certified financial planner. He's an accredited estate planner, a chartered life underwriter, a chartered financial consultant, a certified family business specialist, a retirement income certified professional, and he also has a business succession planning designation. He is currently working on a master's program studying for a special designation in philanthropy, and in all of his free time, he is currently writing a book. Ian has over 300 speaking and training engagements since 2010 all across the US. So in Oregon and Arizona and LA and Las Vegas, to name just a few places. And he is also a loving husband and father of 3 kiddos, Zoe, Katie, and JJ, and along with his wife, Jamie, they also own a CrossFit gym. So it is my pleasure to introduce all of you to Ian Rice.
Geez, thanks, Caitlin. I'm going to mute you so you stop introducing me, but I'll take over. I appreciate that, Caitlin. As we get going tonight with our content, a few housekeeping items. So as Caitlin said, my name's Ian. We do have to run this via a webinar where you don't have your faces shown. So you don't have the ability to show your face, and you also don't have the ability through Zoom in this structure to ask questions. But what we do have is we have a additional program that you can pull up for you to engage. And so I have a second computer here running that we can have access to a live dialogue. So I'm keeping my eye on a screen over here on the left as we go along. The more you engage and the more you ask, the more beneficial this can be to you. So as we go through the content tonight, go to sli.do.com, so sli.do, and then hit enter, and then it's a kind of an anonymous place. You don't have to create an account or anything. You just go there and you type in a question, and then if you see questions that somebody else has asked, you can thumbs up it. You can move it to the top. The content tonight, how to help pay for college with other people's money. It's very near and dear to my heart with kind of a unique college path that I have been on. So getting ready to get rolling. Because we are fiduciary licensed financial advisors, we are not here to solicit your business. None of the stuff that we're going to talk about tonight has to do with you hiring us, more so to kind of make you aware of things that you may not have thought of before, and hopefully get exposed to some new information that's valuable to you and your family. That being said, if you ever do need help, you can reach out to us and we can get a time scheduled with one of our advisors to answer specific questions. So as you ask questions in the thread, I'll do my best to answer as best as possible, but you should always consult a financial professional that has seen your whole picture. So with that being said, kind of jumping right into the content from a time standpoint, we have blocked out here for about 51 minutes still. If you guys ask more questions, we might take that whole time. So feel free to jump in and log into that Slido question answer exchange. So you can ask them live and we'll answer them. So fundamentally, to kick off our conversation, one of the things that I want to be kind of an aha moment for everyone right out of the gate is most people are under the impression that the only way to get college paid for is with somebody else's money. So I want to dive through today a lot of ways to be creative, whether it's all paid for with someone else's money, even if all we do is save $100 from you having to help, or student loans for your kids. It could be worth some time to learn a few new things. So this is not a sarcastic slide. The wit of it is, of course, we'd want to have somebody else pay for college for our kids. So kind of diving in, I really like to set the stage and lay some groundwork. Misinformation I hear all the time when people come in and have conversations with us. One is that 529 plans are the best way to fund college. It's not necessarily true. We'll dive into that a little bit more. They are products designed for the sole purpose of paying for college. And you have to allocate funds, or your family has to allocate funds into these plans. And then if you don't use it for college, what happens is you have to pay a penalty and taxes to get money out to use it for anything different. So it's not bad. It's just committing us to funding a large chunk of college where we might not need to personally cash flow it. The other drawback is if you haven't played with it yet, you can actually go online and start playing with what's called the FAFSA calculators for expected family contributions when it does come time to pay for college. What those expected family calculators will show you and the FAFSA show you is that money that is in a 529 plan, when you show up ready to have your kid go through the doors of college, we were well intended and we saved and got this money in here. When you enter the 529 value in the FAFSA calculator, your expected family contribution, it actually disqualifies you for federal aid and federal loans. So the more money we have in 529 plans, the less eligibility we have for those federal-based plans. The thought process is they've given you tax benefits along the way, and now you have the money for it, so they don't want to give you yours. They want to use your money. So not to bash on any singular product, there's a lot of good to them, and if I know that I have unlimited resources and I want to pay for college and I don't want to think about it, a 529 can be good, but I argue that someone else paying for college is better than me. So on the investment front, that's often information we hear. We had a question come through and I will get to it. The question is, when is the right time to start planning for college? My daughter is 7. So as we go through, I will get to that. I will not forget it, but we will loop back. Thank you for asking. The insurance world, everybody knows an insurance salesman. If you have auto insurance or life insurance, a lot of conversations around life insurance is the best way to pay for school, because then you have the money, and if you don't need it for qualified tuition expenses, we can use it for weddings or down payment on houses and other stuff. Again, you're having to allocate your money in those scenarios to pay for school. It's nice though, because it doesn't typically show up in the FAFSA calculator, and it's a private asset. So that you should use a fee-only planner to create a strategy for you. The only way to avoid bias in some people's understanding of these different advisors that represent these products is to pick someone that doesn't necessarily represent a product, but that represents a strategy. So strategy that is on the right path. But a lot of times you pay a planner a fee to go and pay a commission or a fee to an advisor, so you're double paying to get the same answer. It could be not the case, so we're not trying to disparage anybody or anything, but as we look forward, prepaid tuition plans, that's where you're actually able to go and purchase tuition in the future at today's rates. So you're cutting out the inflation risk associated with those tuition plans. Some people just throw in the towel and say it's too expensive. It's so much money. We're just going to close our eyes and hope for the best when we get there, try and cash flow it, whatever we can do, stop saving for retirement and save to, kind of help out the kids. Question that came through here, when's the right time to start saving for retirement? Some people will tell you that because of the power of compounding helps grow the money very aggressively, that the starting early is always best. And if you haven't started, you're too late. Arguably, the power of compounding and the curves of the power of compounding have different phases to it. So if you start when your kids are young, the power of compounding really comes into play in later years of your life as bigger amounts of money are compounding to bigger amounts. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can attend some of our other seminars on how money works and math and money and investing and some of those things. There's a million other ways. I've heard everything under the sun, and I'm always surprised when there's new creative. This is always the best way to do something. I don't believe that there's one best way for anything, and that they're going to absolutes of this is always right or always wrong. I want to be more open-minded than that. So as we go through today, what I want to talk about is I want to talk about your money. I want to talk about the pressures on your money, and then I want to talk about ways to try and help offset costs of college and potentially have that money work better for you along the way. So what happens in life, we get out of school, we either went to trade school or we just got a job, we started a business, whatever it is, we get our first paycheck. And as these paychecks come in over time, we start to assign responsibilities to that money. So, we start looking around, we buy a house. Once we buy a house, we need to get some homeowners insurance. Once we have an auto, we need to have auto insurance. Money to fund a new car because our beater from college needs to be replaced. We learn about taxes. We learn about our paycheck isn't all ours. And then we start to realize that a lot of things need to be covered from a risk standpoint to protect our families and our future, whether it's liability, malpractice, depending on our specialties. We also need to start sending money to retirement. As we start sending money to retirement, we start to learn about the power of compounding and investments and tax deferral and 401ks. Then we realize, oh shoot, I just had a kid and our life is expensive and we have all of these things going on. If I die, my family needs my income replaced. So we go out and we find life insurance. We realize, well, I'm more likely to get disabled than to die, so I also need to get some disability. But if either one of those happen, my family's going to potentially be in a hard spot financially. So we start passing off this risk of bad events happening to protect our families. Health insurance, as we get more kids and the health insurance premiums get more expensive and the deductibles and out-of-pockets all seem to constantly increase. And then the kids start to grow up and we need braces. Some people start to look at long-term care insurance pretty early in life because they see their grandparents or parents go through it and think these products are going away. Let's try and lock in some protection. Then we start to dream and we say, hey, how about a vacation home? What about money for private school? As we have different amounts of resources and different desires, we all build our life out the same to what we want and what's important and valuable to us. So what's important and valuable to me might not be important and valuable to you. Different parts of this will come into play. If we want to have a next house, we had too many kids and we don't have enough room and now we need to buy a new space. And now the kids are driving us nuts, so we got to get out of the house. So let's go buy a jet ski or a boat. Family vacations, you start to have these thoughts and memories of the kids growing up and the new family traditions that you've created, and you start to have these thoughts creep into your mind of, we only have 4 more vacations to celebrate with the kids, so let's go big and really do it well, and maybe book some bigger family vacations because you've only got a couple more years with them. From a habit standpoint, whether it's you or your kids getting involved in sports, clubs, gymnastics, country clubs, golf clubs. All of a sudden, as we look around, kind of the last thing here is, oh shoot, what about college? So it might not be the last thing, you might be early on, but most of us have a lot of these different pressures. We may not have all of them. This might be some things that we want, but we don't have resources for. But we have a finite amount of money in our world at any given point in time. And so as we think about the ability to pay for college, what I want to do is I want to start creating the ability to try and ease pressures on this central source of income by having opportunity to have money do multiple things for us over time. So when we say when's the right time to start planning for college, the question that came in, my daughter is 7. I have a 7-year-old as well. And so me being the nerd in the finance business, before she was even born, my oldest, I started setting aside money, but I didn't start setting it aside specifically to one end. I started setting it aside because I knew I was having kids and I knew it was going to be expensive and I wanted to have the ability to have options. And so now is the right time to start saving. If you're not saving, how you save and what your hopes and intents are, we'll go through as we have this conversation. So it's never too late because we can always rearrange and rethink our existing resources and what our priorities are. And so just empowering yourself to start learning and thinking and figuring out a game plan is kind of where I want your thoughts to go after today's talk. Again, if you have questions down at the bottom of the slide out 83581. So jumping in, 9 ways to help pay for college with someone else's money. So if I have the, look at the tuition expenses, I'm not here to scare you into investing into an account. I'm not here to freak you out. So I'm not going to quote data on how expensive college is. Some important things for you before we dive into this content. The parameters and expectations you set with your kids can have a huge impact on what they actually experience and how much you actually have to pay. So sometimes we find families that have limited financial resources that have set the expectation that their kids can attend any college that they want to attend because I want my baby to be happy. If that's the case and they go to a very expensive school and they come out of school with student loans, or you have to mortgage the house 3 times to pay the tuition, the opportunity for them in that career that they come out of school with, we want to keep in mind the cost of the education next to the degree and the potential earnings that they'll be able to have in that. If we have limited resources and they spend all of our limited resources going to a private school to get a teaching degree, where my wife was a middle school math teacher, master's in teaching from a private school, if they come out of school and end up with student loans and get stuck on a teacher's salary, they may not make enough to ever justify having paid for that additional income, or it may take them so long to pay for having paid for it, or you're broke and now they have limited resources because we didn't help guide them. We just want to think through as we coach our kids what the expectations might be. And I may set a budget of what I'm willing to help them with. And if they decide that in order to be happy, they need to go to, one of those really expensive schools, I just want to have a strategy, a game plan, and I want to be able to set the parameters with my kids so they don't look at us as a big empty, bottomless pit of money, even though it's, potentially hurting us. Because if we end up broke because we paid too much for their college, and then we have to move in with them, but they can't afford it because they got an education that was too expensive to relative to what their then future earnings potential was going to be, we helped sabotage their life and then are going to become a burden on them in the future, when our ultimate hope and intent was to help enable them to a better future. So we just want to have some parameters set to make sure that our expectations that we set are fair. This conversation for today is to start learning about the resources to get other people's money. So the first, the most fun, the most exciting, the most energetic is scholarships. So scholarships typically will come from the university themselves. whether it's an athletic scholarship and we go and we play football or golf or whatever it is some form of a reduction in tuition, maybe room, maybe board, and maybe books. So it could be full ride, it could be partial ride. It's not always guaranteed for the entirety of the athletic or the entirety of the academic career for 4 years. It may be a shorter time period, it may be a year-by-year scholarship. So as we think through it, you can lose your scholarships. So if you work super hard and then you show up at school and end up getting yourself into trouble, code of conducts, whatever it might be, not having the right grades, you can actually lose some of these athletic scholarships. Additional thing to know is that if there's an injury, a lot of times athletic scholarships will be honored for 2 years following that injury, the finale of that year and maybe one more. So hoping that the athletic scholarship works is I think my kids are the most talented athletes that have ever existed, and they're tiny still. I'm sure it only will get better, but we want to make sure we have proper expectations. So just because they get a full ride doesn't mean that they can then keep a full ride. Let's see. One of the questions that came through is, what if I save too much for college because I started saving so early? Can I move my money to other places? That is a great question. We will address that a little bit later on in the conversation when we start talking about all the different places that we like to save money. Academic scholarships. I was homeschooled. I was the fourth of 6 kids in a tiny little logging town here in Oregon. We were a single income family. My dad did some really creative stuff I'll explain in a few minutes, but a lot of us kids, all 6 of us, actually graduated high school with 2-year college degrees. Because of that experience at a community college while I was still in high school, I actually got a scholarship offer to a Ivy League school for debate. So that's exciting if you're an athlete, a young kid athlete, and you're nerding out doing school and you get offered a debate scholarship. I chose to go wrestle at the University of Oregon versus the debate scholarship. A lot of reasons why. Even after a debate scholarship, the Ivy League school is still 5 times as expensive as a public school here in Oregon. So academic scholarships, it's interesting because as transfer students, you're eligible for different types of scholarships. So if a kid is going to do a year at community college before they take off to college to try and get a better grasp of what they do, you might be able to have the cost of college reduced by having some community college scholarships then translate to better academic scholarships. So in the world of scholarships, there's actually search engines that you can go and grab on the internet. There's paid services that can help you find scholarships. A lot of our clients will pay their kids an hourly rate to go try and land scholarships and then give them a little commission. So pay your kid $10 an hour to use the internet, however they do it, find scholarships they're eligible for, then we can help coach them on the essays. And then if they get a $1,000 scholarship and I give them a $50 bonus or a $100 bonus for every scholarship they land, I've essentially cut the cost of college by 70, 80, 90%. And a lot of those essays can be copied and pasted across those boards. Next source, so this is first with scholarships, second is grants. Grants are different than scholarships because they are not necessarily merit-based from a needs of not having the financial ability. So the school helps you with a financial scholarship or a athletic scholarship. You don't have to be a superstar athlete. The ability to get a grant, there's institutional grants, college grants, government grants, and then private sector grants. So a quick explanation of this, if you start Googling unused college grants in different states, you'll start learning about stuff like California had $500 million of grants go unused in the year 2019. They haven't updated data for 2020 that I've been able to find. But opportunity for those grants going unused is a lot of them are specialties grants. So it might be a trade school, it might be an apprenticeship school, and it might be a community college. So I'm not here to just toot the horns of community colleges, but we have a community college here in Oregon. And if you go and complete a certain set of the education at the community college, they will honor your community college pricing for the remaining 2 years at the 4-year university that they've partnered with in town. So you can actually get a full 4-year degree from that 4-year university with all of it costing the same rates as a community college. So to start learning about these grants, these grant programs, education continuation programs, that's all good. Those are great places to go try and find money. Private sector grants. We actually have at Rice Financial Group a private sector grant that we call a scholarship, but it's technically a grant. What it is an opportunity for students to apply, whether they're in college or going into college, to apply for our scholarship, and we give a couple of different ones away. It doesn't matter what the families earn. It doesn't matter what their financial situation is. It doesn't matter if they know us or if there's some random person that found us on the internet. Our scholarship is, if you write an essay of the most creative ways to get somebody else to pay for school, we will compare that. We have a board that reviews those applications, and we start to hear all the creative ways that you guys, once you start thinking creatively, come up with to help pay for school. So Walmart has stuff for their employees, and sometimes there's companies that don't require it for their employees. A lot of different ways to find those local scholarships or corporate scholarships and grants. Again, if you have any questions, take a quick second here. Keep moving. This is an interesting one that I have spent 7 years talking about, 8 years of doing these seminars talking about, is loans. So up until a couple of years ago, it was really hard for people to believe that there's opportunities to take a loan and then have it be forgiven and paid for by someone else. As we have looked around, what we've watched is changes in student loan forgiveness programs. They have now passed rules and regulations that allow for us as employers to offer a couple of different types of student loan forgiveness plans. So just like a 401k or just like health insurance, that we're able as employers to roll out student loan forgiveness programs as an employee benefit. So I know that Fidelity, a bunch of different companies have different versions of this. It used to be that you had to work in the military, you had to go and work for the Peace Corps, or end up teaching school in suburban Alaska somewhere. Suburban? Anyways, opportunity to get different types of loans when we go to school and we apply, we go through the FAFSA, we get our eligibility for grants and scholarships and whatever else, and then we have our eligibility for loans starts to show up. So there's two primary types of loans. There's subsidized loans. Those are the preferred loans. If you make too much money or if you set aside too much money and you have too much of a available net worth from an expected family contribution, you probably won't be eligible for very many subsidized loans. From an unsubsidized loan standpoint, those are not government sponsored. Those are less favorable because interest starts to accrue right away. Subsidized is government sponsored. They don't charge you interest till you're done with school and out and have a 6-month window of time to be able to start earning an income and be ready to start paying. So subsidized is favorable, unsubsidized just starts accruing interest right away. There's also Parent Plus loans, there's private loans, there's other stuff. You don't want to lean into the private loan space too hard unless you absolutely have to, because those loans are not tied to your kids' names anymore. They're just purely tied to your names. So if it's tied to your name and you look at the interest rate and they're charging you 8% for a personal loan to cover college, you may have to do it. But if we can figure out any way we possibly can to have a loan still tied to our kids, that's a really nice benefit, because as they start coming out of school, you hear all the talk today about the student loan forgiveness programs. That's going to become more and more of a conversation and more of a necessity for employers to offer. So we can actually offer discriminatory plans, which I can just pick and choose my favorite employees and give them bonuses that go into those student loans, and I get special tax benefits for it. And your kids get the loans paid for by their future employer. We just have to, look out for that and keep an eye out for it. So a question that came through on grants, sorry I didn't see it in time. While we were still on grants, how would you find a private sector grant opportunity? That again is really interesting. So I went to a tiny high school, and when it was graduation time, there was like 4 of the like superstar, community involved Boy Scout, everybody loved them people that got like all of the community scholarships. The reason they got them is because they went and asked for them. The rest of us were too lazy. So as we look around, the opportunity to try and find those things, the reason we have a scholarship program is because I challenged kids and parents for a couple of years, 4 or 5 years. If somebody came and presented with me with a package that's, here's a student loan program, here's how it works, here's the application, here's the essay questions, here's how you should do it. I said that if anybody created that for me, I would grant them our very first scholarship so that I wouldn't have to build the program. Somebody finally took us up on it, and now we have a program. So whether it's getting somebody to do it that has wanted to do it but didn't know how, or whether it's just walking around to your local neighborhoods and lumber companies and, smaller organizations, a lot of them, get hit up all the time for money, but not very many of them get hit up in creative ways beyond just, can I please have something? So you can do searches for grants and scholarships. There's search engines available to you that are available. We are not, in this presentation, we are not allowed to endorse any said site. And so a couple of good Google searches and 15 minutes of reading, you'll start to get some ideas of what's available out there. And you can put in your criteria and say, I am African American, I have 2 parents, they make X amount of income, and I live in Southern California, and you're going to have a database of loans that you're potentially available for. So on the loan space, as we look, don't be afraid of the loans in the same way that we have been in the past. What we do need to be afraid of is too many loans that you're ultimately responsible for, whether it's some tragic thing that something were to ever happen to your kid and you co-sign on it and then you're still paying for their school if they were gone, or if it's just so much that they're not going to be able to get out of that ever. It's okay to have loans if we're going to have an exit plan for those loans that don't keep us from living our life, from retiring, and our kids from living their life and having some financial freedom. Parent and grandparent loans, an interesting way to kind of leverage money. And we'll talk a little bit about how to kind of piece a lot of this thinking together here in a few minutes. Parent grandparent loans is where we go and we ask grandma and grandpa for it. Mom and dad might loan it to me and say, hey, I'm not paying for it, but I don't want you to have to pay to the institution. I don't want you to have the strict payback, and I want to give you a more favorable rate. So sometimes we can offset the cost of the college by having more favorable loan rates. Sometimes grandma and grandpa will say, I wanted to help anyway, here's some money. Sometimes we can have grandma and grandpa help us out by making some different investment decisions along the way that help actually reduce the cost of college. So it's still not your money if we're taking it from grandma and grandpa or aunt or uncle, and we might be able to get a favorable rate. So as we move along, depending on how tight our circumstances are and how badly we want to get a college education, we might have to get more and more creative. The more freedom of cash flow and assets we have, the more we tend to try and protect them. So either end of the spectrum or anywhere in the middle, We just don't want to be wasting money unnecessarily. So if you have bad credit and the student loan Parent Plus that comes through is at 12%, you might be able to get a family loan at something more favorable and then have some more favorable payoff period from grandma and grandpa or mom and dad. So in that, these parent-grandparent loans, if you're going to take a loan from grandma and grandpa or mom and dad, you want to make sure that it is not a relationship where they're going to hold it against you anytime you spend $2 while you still owe them money. So there's a lot of emotional stuff there. We don't spend a lot of time on this, but it is something to keep in mind. Money is something that a lot of families have a hard time talking about, but want to be better about talking about. And it's a weird, I don't want to ask because I don't want them to feel like they have to help, and they want to help, but they don't want to infringe on our, independence. So it could be worth a conversation. Let me skip here. So this one is, we have to be really careful with this one. So home equity line of credit and refinances, I do not, nor would I want you to take a equity line of credit or cash out refinance your house and stroke checks to the university that your kids are going to. But what we do think about is now, if you have a 7-year-old or later, when you get closer to school, can we get cash out of our house to invest into, let's say, another investment property? If we can invest some of the equity in our house into an investment property that makes us money and passive income along the way, and we can still service our mortgage and we do it wisely, we can actually get passive income off of our kids' college savings account that was funded by our house. And then when our kids get to school, we can take and do what's called a 1031 exchange of value. And we can actually, if we wanted to, we could either take equity out of the investment house and buy another investment house, sell it and transfer it. But we can actually own a house in the town our kids go to school in, potentially, maybe not on the beach in Southern California, unless we have huge resources. But we can have our kids' schmuck friends and their families that didn't think ahead paying us rent to cover our mortgage, plus allow my kid to live free and help start offsetting the cost of college for the tuition part of it. Once they're done with school, I can sell that property and I can turn it back into an investment property somewhere else that might be more favorable to me or for another kid that's coming along. At the very end of it, I can try and do some tax planning. I can potentially sell that house and then put the equity back into my house, and my mortgage payment was staying the same. I was just repurposing the dead equity in the house to accomplish other additional benefits as we move along. And then once college is done and we were reducing the cost of college because of that move, we can then take and we can put it back into our house, and we still are on a good positive trajectory of potentially paying off that house on a similar time horizon, but we have more money because we did that. So there's a lot that can go wrong in that, but I want you to start thinking differently about our money, and that's where I was saying earlier, how many of these roles and responsibilities can we have? I want to have a paid off house. I want to have a huge retirement account. I want to have an investment account, and I want to have an investment property. And I like the idea of passive income. And by the way, we have to pay for college. So this is how to have some of that money, do one job for a while, another job for a while, and then come back and finish the original job that it was tasked with at the beginning. Another question came through. Let's see. I'm going to get to the if we already set aside a bunch of money for college and feel like we have too much here in a little bit. Cash value life insurance. This is very misunderstood. We were having a conversation earlier this week with someone that used a cash value life insurance policy that wasn't structured right. Their family put in a bunch of money that saved over time, and then when they went to take the money out, they didn't exit the life insurance plan the right way, and so now they're stuck servicing loans and interest, and have some potential tax ramifications due to that. It's not a bad tool. It was just not utilized and understood correctly in time to have it work right. So there is opportunity for this to be utilized, but we're not here to talk products. It has the opportunity to utilize money for a while for one thing, and then put it back and utilize it for something else later. So you should have conversations if you're curious about that with a professional that actually understands how they work and doesn't love it too much and doesn't hate it too much. This is one of my favorites, parent-teacher employee free tuition programs. So there are opportunities for us as parents to potentially get involved in education at local universities or universities abroad. So if you have a skill set and you're a high engineer or doctor or professional in some area, or psychologist, whatever your skill set is, you may have the ability to get put on as faculty. And a lot of schools offer either free or reduced tuition for employees and teachers and faculty at different universities. So my old neighbor, she was a assistant at a local, I believe it was like a lumber company. She, a couple years before her kids got to college, she changed and got a job as a receptionist at the front desk at the employee health center at a local private Christian college that's pretty expensive. And because she was there and she was tenured in time, she actually took a little bit of a pay cut because her pay was only for 10-ish months out of the year, because it was a school employee as opposed to a like full-time job at a year-round employment. So when the kids aren't there, she wasn't there. So she took a little bit of a pay cut, but all three of her boys went to school free of tuition at a private, really expensive Christian school, because she was answering the phones and helping greet people and do that stuff in the same way she was doing before. So a small cut to cash flow actually increased and allowed them to have that full tuition experience. Other stuff that exists today, they mentioned that at the beginning, Caitlin went on about the studies that I'm doing. So I continue to study. I'm an avid learner, and I'm always trying to question and learn more. Because of the value that we have, because of what we do, we have different organizations that offer to pay for my school for me for free. And so as we move forward in life, we may end up getting a job somewhere where we have the opportunity to do that. There's also programs. So I went to University of Oregon. I was wrestling. I had a head injury. I had to drop out of school for 2 years because of short-term memory loss and all sorts of stuff. I got messed up. So anyways, when I was doing all the treatment and the therapies and trying to get my brain to work right again, I started unloading boxes at UPS, the brown box delivery company. And they said, hey, here's the deal, Ian. When you're ready to go back to school, if you move up to Portland, we will reimburse your tuition every month, every quarter after you pass your classes, we'll pay you back for it. So here I was, starting at University of Oregon, ready for this fantastic career, hoping to be an athlete, get hurt, future there goes away. I'm unloading trailer trucks, and there's programs that different employers offer, Starbucks, UPS's at different regions it's available than other regions. So where they might be having a hard time having good quality employees that show up to work and work hard in one region, but there's another region where they don't have those problems. They offer different benefit packages regionally, not just at a corporate level. So to kind of think through all that, if your kids can work through school, I ended up working nights through the rest of school and then going to school full time to finish out school. Running Start programs, I referenced this earlier. This is kind of an advancement on AP classes. It's where you can actually get a partnership with your local school district and local community college. And you can actually, as a student in high school, attend classes at the community college that might not be eligible in that AP program. So all 6 of my siblings and I attended community college. at the cost of the local high school while we were still living at home. And all of us ended up leaving for college with 90 paid for college credits and a degree. So we all were eligible for different types of aid with different responsibilities moving forward. Still had to pay for books and gas and whatever else. I was still eligible to participate in sports and actually had more time because I worked a block, or I was going to school on a block schedule. So in that, I still got to see the friends. I showed up at lunch breaks. I worked a couple of jobs while I was working, so I had more time for money to make money, and then I had more time for the friends and more time to focus on sports because I was in a Running Start program, getting me a faster start for college. So look into that if you have interest. It's a great way to cut off a couple of years of college costs before you even get there. So a lot of the states, I'm not sure where you're at. We have the question on if I put away too much money, how can I redivert it and reorient it? It all depends on where you live, what rules that have been approved at your local level, state levels. So in Oregon, we have changed some rules to where we have the ability to take up to $10,000 per year out of our 529 college savings accounts. If we're too far ahead on those and we're like, whoa, that's way too much, I can actually use up to 10 grand per year per kid on higher education. So in that, or higher high school and middle school private school. So I can start spending that money now, decreasing it, whether I cash flow it still and then just take the money out of my 529 and repurpose it somewhere else. Because if you have kids in private school, you'll typically have been used to paying for that. So we can just run the receipt against the 529 or college savings plan distribution. You don't have to pay the taxes and penalties. Now I can, over a potential 6-7 years of private school, I could pull out $70,000 that I could then take, invest somewhere else, and then utilize for investment properties or other multi-purpose type of investments. Time-wise, we have about 9 minutes left. If you have more questions, go ahead and pop them in. I am going to keep cruising through a couple of things here. The ideal savings strategy. So a lot of history has taught us that if you have a problem, go find a product to solve it. I want to save for retirement, so I'm going to use a 401k retirement plan or an IRA retirement plan. I want to save for college, I need to use a college savings plan. At the end of the day, what we want is we want flexible money that we can offset or use to pay for college, but I don't care what it's called. I don't care if it's an investment property that's there and available to pay for it. I want it to create the most value for me in my life that I possibly can. Not just rate of return or tax savings, but additional value to me and the people I care about. So as we have different investments, those different investments, investment properties, Caitlin mentioned a gym, those all accomplish something different for a different purpose. So as we save and we set aside, if all of our money goes into qualified retirement, qualified college savings, or all into cash, or all into non-qualified brokerages, business ownerships, and real estate, we end up having limited problems and limiting output options when it comes time to disperse the money. But if we set aside and save in a diversified way, where we're saying, I want to be able to pivot from point to point to point, what we do is we maximize the benefit of those accounts in any given year based on what's actually happening and what's important to us. And then we try and have the ability to pivot and change as life changes, goals change, rules change, taxes change, your income changes. Your kids in school and they're 2 years in and then they decide to drop out and go do something else and move in with their boyfriend and they don't talk to you, but you're signed on the line for student loans. We want to be able to have thought through good and bad and have contingency plans in place. Don't mean to be derogative on that story. It's just an example. So where we find a lot of people have gotten themselves into trouble is they have all their money in one bucket or two buckets. But we want to know and understand how to spread it out and how we would spread it out, and then how we move it between those different accounts. The 529 plans and the 401ks and retirements, they have limited distribution options because they want to, you'll get penalized if you use it too soon or for not the right thing. A lot of the other tools that exist in our world of investments and brokerages and all the other things, a lot of them have more flexibility than some of those singular use tools. The permanent insurance, that's a huge thing that you need to unpack on your own. Attend another one or two of our trainings to learn more about that. So this was more just to show, don't have all your eggs in one basket. And when you do 529 plans, make sure you don't save too much and disqualify yourself from all aid and have to cash flow college and end up out a bunch of money because we did what we thought was best, but are starting to learn that there might be other options that fit better for what you're trying to do. So not all people should use the permanent insurance. There's a ton that goes into that, but not all people should save 25% to each quadrant. As I said earlier, compliance. As fiduciary advisors, we can't give blanket recommendations, and there's a lot that goes into all that. From a visual, I see a couple more questions. From a visual, if we are walking through the doors of college, and it's, we are where we're at and we have our money where we're at, first dollars that you want to spend when you have to start cash flowing college above and beyond loans or favorable loans, first money that we want to pay is 529 values. We want to drain those accounts because they're designed for it. And then from there, non-qualified dollars, real estate, rental properties, we can withdraw some earnings and cost basis if we want to. But I prefer to try and have the earnings off of that reduced costs and not spend the basis out. Qualified dollars, loans against your 401ks or distributions from those accounts are really unfavorable because it negatively impacts a lot of different things as you take money out, pay taxes or interest. Life insurance, you can do dividends, loans, life insurance, cash surrenders, all sorts of stuff there. Again, don't get lost in the weeds on that. Cash we can withdraw anytime. So when we look at flexible uses, whether we want it for college, a wedding fund, like if one kid gets a full ride, I want to have the money able to help another one. If they all get full rides, I want to have money earmarked that I can continue to impact their life, whether it's investment properties, wedding, fund, gifting it to them, or leave it for my retirement. So cash is king. From a flexible use standpoint, we can use it for anything. Life insurance dollars, qualified dollars for as far as college goes, maybe, and then no on weddings, no on fun, and fun is just anything that might come up that's important to us, buy a boat, something different if those resources are no longer needed. Non-qualified, this is where we spend a ton of our time talking, is investment properties, vacation homes, second homes, brokerage accounts, stuff like that. And then first dollar spent, college, 529s are designed for college. If you use it for wedding, fund, retirement, anything else, you'll pay taxes and penalties on it. So there's some workarounds on the 529s, but not much wiggle room at all if you already have the money stashed into there. So if you want an individual consult on that, you can let us know or seek out somebody that you trust to have a kind of more robust college planning conversation than just here's our product. All right, so questions. We have a couple minutes left here, and I will stick around for a little bit longer if we need, as people keep coming in. Where are we at? So the most recent we have, should we be saving a certain amount per month or per year? So yes, if you want more on that, you can attend one of our Organizing Your Financial Junk Drawer seminars. You can look at some of those past recordings. Quick answer is you really want to try and save at least a minimum of 15% of your annual gross income. So if you make $100,000 before taxes and retirement and benefits and everything else, you want to try and get to a point over time where you're saving $15,000 per $100,000. the more you save, the more flexibility you have and options you have, and the farther away from paycheck to paycheck, and the more eligibility you have for additional, tools and resources in your role. So attend, either schedule a meeting with us or attend, and we can give you more of an education there. I live in Arizona. How do you work with people from other states? So we have clients all over the place. We do travel. In the old days, we would travel once in a while because we like to meet people face to face. If you're ever in our neck of the woods, we encourage you to try and stop by and say hello. But we do just about everything via Zoom these days or webinar. We have secure file share options for you to get us your information and for us to kind of dive into a relationship. So whether you're here on the other side of the world, it doesn't really impact us. We just have to have our schedules aligned in order to coordinate scheduling a meeting. Let's see, anything else? Any other questions as we are kind of wrapping up here? Again, Slido, hanging out here for a minute. Again, our firm is up here. We do tons of work with folks all over the place. And if you want to learn more about that, you can reach out to Caitlin or Amber or myself, and we will get you a little bit more information. We have a kind of complimentary conversation and audit that we do for you that we kind of piece together and say, hey, here's some creative things that you might not have thought of, and here's some holes that you need to fill. Here's some tricks for helping yourself save more by finding inefficiencies in some of the areas of your role. I think that is the end of the conversation. So if you have questions, if you want to have a conversation, let us know. Otherwise, thank you for joining us. We are wrapped up exactly on the nose. And so I will stay live here for just a second if more questions come through. Again, thanks for carving out time. I'm going to see if Caitlin wants to say anything before we all sign off. Caitlin, are you there?
I am here. So I would just echo Ian's comments. If anyone has any questions about what we presented today or want some more information about our team and how we may be able to support you, feel free to reach out to myself or Amber Williams on our team. And then I'd also encourage everyone to check out our website. We do have a specific events page where you can find all of our past recordings and webinars, and you can see what we have coming up next for anything in the future that you wish to attend. Be on the lookout too. We are changing up our website and making some awesome enhancements, so that is on the horizon as well. But other than that, we really thank all of you for your time this evening. We hope you learned some very informative information about college planning, and reach out if you have any questions. And one last thing, I do need to make a shout out to Legend Springs because we did, invite all of you, all of our families at Legend Springs, and all of our teachers and staff. And so thank you very much for attending, and we will see you all soon.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your evening. And again, we're not scary. If you have quick questions, you can just reach out to. So we look forward to meeting you at some point in the future if the opportunity ever presents itself. So take care, have a good night, and enjoy brainstorming some new ways to hopefully help pay for college.